Hey, good evening or good morning. I'm sorry. Today's Bible study comes from Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 30, and they read as follows. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. Now, this is a short passage, but there are a few things here that you have to think about. Um, Jesus and his disciples were going around Caesarea Philippi, and on the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" So Jesus was inquiring to his disciples, "What do you hear about who I am when you're out there? Who do people say that I am?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." So his disciples tell him who they hear that he is. Now, the important thing here is your personal relationship with God about who do you say that he is? Because you see, he brings it back to them in verse 28. He brings the thought of who is he to them and their life. He hears what some of the people are saying because they've told him. They said it was John the Baptist, which he was not. Others say Elijah, which he was not, and still others say one of the prophets. And the prophet spoke of him. But he really gets to the heart of this when he asks him, "Who do you say I am? What about you?" He asked him, "What about you? Who do you say I am? What is your personal relationship with me?" And Peter, he answered, "You are the Messiah." Peter answered the question correctly. But then you have to say, well, how did Peter answer this question correctly? Because everybody else that they had heard said something different. But Peter must have answered him correctly by faith, by having a personal relationship with him, by knowing his works, by seeing his works. And Peter was fortunate enough to get authority to go do some of the works that he did. So Peter answered because he had a personal relationship with God, with Jesus. If you want to know who Jesus is, you have to have a personal relationship with him. You cannot just go by what somebody else says because we can lead you astray. If you don't know his word and his deeds and his actions and his voice, we can tell you anything. So Peter answers here simply saying, "I have a personal relationship with you. I know who you are. You are the Messiah." We should all have a personal relationship with the Lord. But Jesus then tells them, he warned them, don't tell anyone, because they had to learn who he was. It tells you that this was right to the point. "And thou art Christ, the Son of the living God." And it was adequate in how he summarized it. So all the people who said he was this and that, still hadn't received him and taken on their personal relationship with him, because everybody should have been answering, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." So remember, in this passage, the important part is to make sure that you have a personal relationship with Christ. Everybody else can say who he is and think who he is, as they said. Some said John the Baptist, some said Elijah, still others one of the prophets. But when he asked his disciples, Peter had an answer. You are the Messiah. And just because Peter had his own personal relationship with him. So please make sure you have your own personal relationship with him and that he is speaking to you. And take the time to study his word, because Peter knew who he was because of what he had done with him and what he had seen and what he had heard. Amen.